The creation of Matt Groening, The Simpsons debuted in 1987 in America as part of the Tracy Ullman Show. It was Groening's first animation project after several successful alternative comics, such as Life is Hell and School is Hell. As a boy, he'd been an obsessive fan of the classic cartoons and TV shows, collecting his favorite musical clips on 2-track tape for early productions in his living room, which were tried out on his sisters, Lisa and Maggie. This proved to be valuable research. He learned, he says, that you can make a great cartoon show even with lousy animation, providing the writing, voice work, and music are top-notch. Well, you'll not need me to tell you how good these are on The Simpsons, nor how popular, with the show airing not only here on the BBC, but also on Sky and Channel 4. Has there ever been a show in this country placed with so many networks? My family is just one of millions that can't get enough of it. So, with Simpsons soundtracks running through my head, I went to meet Alf Clausen last summer at the historic 20th Century Fox studios in L.A. We wandered past the cool palm trees and well-manicured lawns that surround the hacienda-style offices on the lot, over to the imposing Alfred Newman soundstage, where ghosts of legendary film lore seemed to haunt the building. I mean, Marilyn Monroe stood here among the musicians and sang Heat Wave from There's No Business Like Show Business. Julie Andrews performed The Sound of Music. Quincy Jones conducted Soul Bossa Nova for Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me. Alf and I sat in a vocal booth near the imposing control desk that looks like the bridge in Star Trek, and I wondered how he, a seasoned TV veteran even then, ever came to work for a cartoon show.
The impetus for it came originally, I believe, from Matt Groening. When I had my first interview, Matt said that they wanted an acoustic music composer, and they believed that the use of the acoustic music orchestra would give the show more class, and interestingly enough would tend to smooth out the animation because of the fact that we're on basically a weekly turnaround. Sometimes the animation comes back a little bit rougher than one would hope, and Matt feels that by using acoustic music it smooths out the rough edges and makes it more polished. And I think he's been absolutely right, and he's stuck with that all these years.
The actual theme for The Simpsons, arranged and conducted with endless ingenuity by Alf Clausen, was actually written by film composer Danny Elfman. Groening was a fan and had approached Elfman when looking for a theme for his new show. To give him an idea of the sound world he envisaged, he gave Elfman a tape that included music by Nino Rota, a Remington Shavers jingle by Frank Zappa, some easy listening music, and a Teach Your Parrot to Talk record. So, the die was cast for the breadth of styles that this cartoon would require. The baton swiftly passed to Alf Clausen to provide a weekly score that would further animate the animations, underline the drama, and deliver the jokes. But why the extravagant use of a live band? Surely a couple of synthesizers could do it.
The use of the orchestra is very three-dimensional, and the orchestral colors can go places that synthetic colors can't possibly take you, even though they try.
Yeah.
I have found that the use of synthetic music over the years is basically kind of two-dimensional. The orchestra just has this amazing amount of depth to it.
What's so remarkable about The Simpsons music, aside from its fantastic imagination and skill, is its confidence in telling part of the story. This was a tip Groening had learned from Mel Brooks. Use the music to score the real emotion behind the comedy. In most cartoon music, you expect a certain amount of Mickey Mousing to go on, where the music simply underlines and mimics the frantic activity of the characters. The Simpsons music does much, much more than this. I asked Alf how he discovered the right tone.
In my first meeting with Matt Groening and the other producers, Matt said to me, "We don't look upon our show as being a cartoon, but we look upon our show as being a drama where the characters are drawn." And I think it served the show very well. Matt said we're always going to score the emotion of the characters first. We're not going to score the action first. It's always the emotion of the characters that will carry the drama of this show, and that's the way we'd like you to score it.
One poignant song comes straight to mind. Kirk and Luann Van Houten, the parents of Bart's best friend Milhouse, are going through a messy divorce. In a desperate bid to save the marriage, Kirk self-produces an album called Can I Borrow a Feeling and publicly woos his wife with the title song. Happy ending? Far too simple. All you ever needed to know about failing relationships compressed into 51 seconds. Alf's written literally tens of thousands of cues for the show over its 18-year run, including songs, mini-musicals, themes, parodies, and forensically precise underscoring. I wondered, what was his routine in scoring a new episode?
Our process on a weekly basis is pretty much the same. We hold what's called a music spotting session where the executive producer and I and the music editor and a couple of the other producers get together and we look at the show from top to bottom to decide what spots are going to contain music. We're very specific about the start of a music cue, a music piece, the end of the music cue, what the style of the music cue is going to be about. We just did music spotting today for our next Halloween special, which is Treehouse of Horror number 17. I believe it was 39 cues, which is more than our norm. Our norm is about 30. But what we do, obviously, for those of you who watch the show, is that we play the seriousness of the situation dead on until it's time for the payoff or the joke, and then we get out of the way of the joke and let the joke happen.
Alf Clausen is an astonishing repository of musical styles and has the solid technique and inspiration to breathe life into them week in and week out. I'm always amazed by the accuracy with which he can fix a particular point on the musical radar. For instance, not just emulating music for a car chase, but a car chase from 1973. I asked him how he came by this very unique body of musical knowledge.
In high school, I was a French horn player and also a singer and played in a very good high school band and a very good high school choir. When I went to college, I continued my French horn studies, but I was a mechanical engineering major for 2.5 years until music won out, and so I changed my major to music. During that particular period of time, I also learned how to play the bass, and I became a jazz bass player. So we fast forward many years to my arrival in Los Angeles, and I started working all sorts of different kinds of arranging jobs while still playing my French horn and still gigging at night as a bass player, both electric and acoustic. And I started working in jingles, ghostwriting music for jingle writers, and in jingles, obviously, you have to do all sorts of different kinds of styles. So I had to kind of immerse myself in styles there, and I graduated, so to speak, from jingles into variety television, and I became the musical director of the Donnie and Marie show a long time ago, and also the Mary Tyler Moore variety show. And in variety shows, you have to immerse yourself in styles, because in a variety show, they maybe do 8 bars of a particular song in a particular style, then segue to 16 bars of another song, which is totally different, and you have to try to duplicate that. And from there, after variety kind of dried up, I worked for several years as an orchestrator for a number of named composers in Los Angeles doing film work. Extremely talented guys. Lalo Schifrin, Elmer Bernstein, Lee Holdridge, Jim D. Pasquale, Ira Newborn. It was a wonderful, wonderful working experience. So that when I do a cue on The Simpsons where they say to me, we have Homer and Marge going to a country club party and we need some country club band music in the background, can you do that? And I said, can I do that? I've been there. I've lived that, Occasionally we'll hit a style that is totally unfamiliar to me. In that case, I'll ask one of the production assistants to get a copy of some clips, some tapes, or some CDs, etc. And I do about maybe 15 minutes of research listening to the tracks that I have to emulate and try to absorb the most obvious melodic, harmonic, rhythmic, and orchestrational elements of that piece that I'm listening to make it identifiable to the general public. Then I craft my cue the same way with those highlights so that the listener will say, well, it sounds like the music from Waterworld, but it's not the music from Waterworld. But it sure sounds like it. Well, that's why.
A real labor of love, especially since this is TV and there's no assurance that they'll be heard above the encroaching shampoo ads or trailers for next week's football. Even for someone as adept as Alf, it must be tough revamping that theme over and over again.
Oh, it's a big challenge for me as a composer because, interestingly enough, the main title music really has, in my mind, only three measures of recognizable melody, and then it goes off into basic orchestral effects to accompany the various shenanigans that the family is going through. So I have to be able to take the three bars and elaborate on them and twist them and turn them and make them into whether it's an Australian feel or an Afro-Cuban feel or whatever it ends up being. It was always a lot of fun.
As Alf mentioned, a large part of his job is parody. Some of the most loved and most recognized musical landmarks of The Simpsons have been their affectionate send-ups of Broadway classics. Do the original composers ever complain?
For the most part, we don't hear from anyone, which is very interesting. But I did have a very revealing conversation at a Christmas party just this last year with one of the Sherman brothers. And I introduced myself to him and told him who I was, and he said, "Oh, I know your work." He said, "You did the Mary Poppins parody, right?" And I said, "That's right." And he said, "It was marvelous." And I went, whew, mopped my brow, because I didn't know what really to expect. And he said, "Boy, that was so funny, and I'm honored to be parodied in that way." And so that was a very nice touch.
In addition to his expert adaptations, Alf Clausen also has to come up with original songs for The Simpsons. Which are his favorites?
I think probably the songs that have stayed with me the most and closest to my heart are the songs that really don't parody anything, that I was able to create from the ground up just with a few words of direction from the executive producer. For instance, we have a song called "We Do," the Stonecutters song. I was just told that Homer had joined this new secret society in Springfield, and they were having a meeting indoctrinating Homer into the society, and it was kind of to be a combination of a drinking song and a spiritual, uplifting kind of piece.
After we finished our conversation in LA last summer, Alf invited me with him to a session he conducts every year as part of the Henry Mancini Institute. There, each summer, talented young players are put through their paces with the kind of stuff that would-be Hollywood studio musicians need to master. Alf's very proud that for several years, his sessions have been voted his favorites by these young musicians. Most have grown up with The Simpsons. After all, they're not much older than the show itself. Alf brings in a big stack of his scores. They read through them once, then listen to The Simpsons' own band recording to pick up the finer points of the feel of the song, then play through again, and it's on to the next chart. What amazed me listening to them is that all of the red-hot Latin feel of Senor Burns is right there in the score and not just left to the Tito Puente band to provide. Mind you, Tito and his band do bring that extra something to it.
It's a band of, as we say in the industry, road rats. Always on the road, going from city to city to city, and probably never getting home for months at a time. Obviously, that's the downside of the life, but the upside of the life is that they play together on a nightly basis, and they are so unbelievably in sync with each other as performers. You can hear the tightness of the band and the enthusiasm of the band. It was just a thrill for me.
The music for The Simpsons has received many awards, among them 2 Emmys, one of them for the song "We Put the Spring in Springfield," which is a showcase for Alf's musical theater skills if ever there was one, stretching them to an almost operatic scale. At the same time, his disciplined and economic approach compresses what could be a sprawling ensemble number into an ultra-compact mini-musical.
"We Put the Spring in Springfield" was probably one of our longest musical pieces ever. The story was that there was a house of ill repute in Springfield called the Maison Derrière, and the city council was voting to shut the house down, and Homer didn't want that to happen because Bart was working there in his first after-school job. And so Homer was on a campaign to keep the house open and sang this song out on the steps of the house as the people were coming to destroy the house, and the intent of the song was to talk the people out of it. And It was very interesting for me because 17 characters appeared in this musical number, which is, I think, an all-time record for us. And what's challenging for me there is not only do I have to write the song, but I have to write each one of the musical phrases in the range and tessitura for each one of the characters who are going to sing that little bit.
So, how many voices did it take to inhabit those 17 characters?
We have 6 main cast members who do the bulk of the animated voices, and then we have approximately 4 secondary characters, and then occasionally other people are brought in to do specialty voices, and then we have guest voices as well.
Another of my all-time favorite numbers is from the episode The City of New York versus Homer Simpson, which follows the family on an eventful trip to the Big Apple. It's called You're Checking In.
That was composed as a Broadway musical number that Marge and the family went to see when they went to New York City. And Marge's wonderful comment at the beginning as she's sitting waiting for the number to start is that, for my entire life I've always wanted to be a member of a Broadway audience. So the gist of the piece is that it's a Hollywood star who has been on substance abuse for many years, and he's now being sentenced to rehab by the judge. And it's a 2-scene song. The first scene is in the courtroom, the second scene is in the hospital. What I tried to do in the way I fashioned the piece was to make it a, please forgive me guys, a combination of Stephen Sondheim and Andrew Lloyd Webber. So the first part of the song in the courtroom is a little bit more Sondheimish, a little bit more harmonically sophisticated, melodically sophisticated. And then the second half, when we have all the sets turn around and it turns into the hospital, it's a little bit more like a typical Andrew Lloyd Webber rock-oriented musical.
This was written by Alf's predecessor at The Simpsons, Jeff Martin, who was in charge of the songs at the very beginning while Alf was looking after the underscoring. At an imposing 4 minutes, it seems like a whole act of a musical somehow.
I've had so many emails come back to me that say, we think Streetcar is one of the most fabulous musicals that it's ever been written for the Broadway stage. And I want to write back and I say, do you have any idea how short Streetcar is? There were like maybe 4 musical themes in it, of which we maybe did 16 bars of each. There's no complete song in there, I don't think, but it's exactly what you're talking about, that the stories are crafted so beautifully that the public thinks that they've been there in 45 seconds. And all of a sudden we have a full musical in 45 seconds. But there are guys out there who actually believe it, and they come to me with emails, and I said, guys, get a life,
Like watching any outstanding artist perform, it's easy to forget the hard graft that goes into each episode of the show. Which comes first, the words or the music? And how do they get the animation to fit?
The songs are always done in what's called a pre-record session, where I'll write the song, I'll do a recording session with a small group of maybe piano, bass, drums, and guitar just to record a rhythm track for the song, and I'll have studio singers come in, sing the song so the cast members know exactly how the song is to be phrased, and then we'll record the cast voices and make a mix of that and send that mix to the animators, and the animators will then animate to those tracks. 8 months later, the tracks come back in the animated episode, and then I throw the rhythm section tracks away and replace them with a full orchestra track, so it sounds as if you're listening to a full-blown Broadway production. Normally, we're only about 2.5 weeks ahead of airtime. Wow. With the underscore. We record usually on a Friday. The mix is done on Monday and Tuesday, and the show airs usually the following Sunday. So that's a week and a half. Not 2.5. I fooled myself. See how it happens on The Simpsons? Yes. All the time gets messed up.
During our interview, I asked, or tried to ask Alf, about a cue that featured some very dramatic scoring. I couldn't remember the episode or the title, but I wanted to compliment him for it and include it here. We tried several times to find it on one of the Simpsons CDs. Eventually he replied that he was flattered, but he couldn't remember it either.
When we started recording the music for this show, we started keeping consecutive take numbers. And at my last scoring session, which was a couple of weeks ago, we passed take number 23,000.
Phew, time for my nap. Meanwhile, Alf still finds time to rehearse, write, and research new styles to meet the quirky demands of the show's writers, while working with LA's finest musicians, not to mention the many musical guests. Another regular on The Simpsons is the evil character Sideshow Bob, who is voiced by Kelsey Grammer, the star of the long-running hit Frasier.
I have the best orchestra in the world.
You
It's
really
just
do.
incredible. As I say, we generally have about 35 players, which in the world of television is a lot today, but nevertheless is not really that large an ensemble. To be able to play all of these styles and play them well and quickly, because I mentioned before that we do about 30 cues per episode. We record all of those in 3 to 4 hours. The musicians have never seen the music before. Their sight reading is impeccable. They're all artists in their own right. They've played with major symphony orchestras all around the country. They've appeared on countless major motion pictures coming out of Hollywood. It's a thrill to have my music played by players of this quality. My engineer is the same way. My engineer is capable of recording all of these various styles at the drop of a hat. And when I tell him that it has to be like a TV news theme, a little on the cheap, he'll do the equalization to match that. It's a great team effort.
The show's credits are peppered with guest names that resonate across the several generations that make up the show's audience. That last song, Jazzman, is by Carole King. Likewise, the show keeps up to date with more recent superstars clamoring to play second fiddle to Homer and company. I asked Alf who were some of the more memorable musical guests they've had on the show.
Most of the time when we have musical guest artists, I don't participate in the recording of them because the producers basically take over that chore while I'm home crafting the score for next week's episode. I can't be in two places at once. So I don't see a lot of them. For instance, Paul McCartney, one of the producers, actually flew to London and recorded Paul McCartney in London. But we've had, as I say, Tito Puente. We've had U2. U2 as a group was in this very room, the scoring stage. I wrote a song which U2 sang on, which was really a kick. It was called The Garbage Man.
It's so easy to take this kind of virtuosity and musical imagination for granted while being carried along by what Matt Groening described earlier as top-notch writing, voices, and music. But I think there is no parallel in TV, film, or musical theater that requires the versatility and skill that goes into the musical soundtracks for The Simpsons. Alf seems ready for anything, but I did wonder if there's a darker, political side to his work, having to deal with egos and demands of the stars. So I put it to him, what's it like to work with Bart?
Dope! Well, Bart's a rascal, and the fun part about working with Bart and company is that the folks never age. And when the decision was made to do that, it opened a whole new world of where the family can go, what the family can participate in, and the things that crazy Homer can get involved with. He can become an astronaut. And there are no barriers for costs and location issues and all of that kind of stuff. I think that we've covered every possible musical style in my 16 years here. And we come to a spotting session and they'll throw another one at me and I'll say, oops, forgot about that one, so here we go again. And something new this week again. It never stops. It's very interesting.